Mila stood at the edge of the wide lake holding the folded letter in her hands while the cold air moved softly across her face making her skin tighten with quiet fear, and wonder. The water stretched out in every direction calm and deep like a mirror that held too many secrets. In the center of the lake stood the house resting on tall wooden pillars rising from the water like silent guards. The roof looked old and dark, and the walls were pale and tired. Yet the house stood strong like it was waiting. For her alone. Mila had never seen anything like it in her whole life, and her heart beat faster with every breath she took. Her life before this moment had been small and quiet. She lived in a little rented room over a closed shop in a slow town where nothing ever changed. She worked in a bookstore where most days passed without surprise. She had no rich family, no hidden past, and no strange stories. Yet 3 days ago the letter arrived with her name written clean and clear. It said only one thing, that a house in the middle of a lake now belonged to her. No reason was given, no sender was named, only an address, and a simple line that said the key would be waiting inside. Now she stood there staring at the narrow wooden walkway that reached from the shore to the quiet house. The boards were dark with age and bent slightly with the weight of time. The water moved softly below, sending gentle sounds up through the still air. Mila hesitated as her boots touched the first plank. The wood creaked under her weight, and the sound echoed across the silent lake. She took another step, and then another, feeling like each one pulled her farther from the life she knew and closer to something she did not understand. The wind shifted and pushed small waves toward the pillars, making soft splashes that sounded like whispers. The lake no longer felt calm, it felt aware, like it was watching her move forward. Mila reached the door slowly, her hand trembling as her fingers touched the rough wood. The door was cold, even through her glove. She stood there for a moment with her breath held tight inside her chest, then she turned the handle and pushed. The door opened with a low strained sound that drifted out across the water. Inside the air was still, and cool dust floated in thin lines of light that slipped through worn curtains. The room was small, but careful. A wooden table stood near the window, and a single chair rested beside it. Shelves lined one wall filled with faded books and small objects placed with clear purpose. Nothing felt left behind in a rush, everything felt planned. Mila stepped inside and closed the door behind her. The sound echoed around the quiet room like the closing of a chapter. She walked slowly, her fingers brushing the edge of the table. The surface was smooth beneath the dust like it had once been touched. Often with every step she felt both fear and comfort growing together inside her chest. The kitchen sat to one side, simple but complete. Pots hung neatly from hooks, dishes were stacked in even rows. A small kettle rested on the stove, as if waiting to be used. The place did not feel empty, it felt paused, like someone had stepped out only moments before, even though years had clearly passed. Across the room another door waited. Mila pushed it open and found a bedroom. A narrow bed rested against the wall with a neatly folded blanket on top. Beside it sat a wooden chest, smooth and worn with age. Her heartbeat grew louder as she knelt and lifted the lid. Inside lay dozens of letters tied together with a faded blue ribbon. Some were yellow with time, others looked newer, as if written only months ago. She lifted the first letter and slowly unfolded it. The writing was clean and careful. The words spoke of the lake, of the quiet days and long nights, of seasons passing slowly one after another. The writer spoke of waiting and watching and learning the deep language of water and wind. There was no name at the end, only a single line that made her breath freeze inside her chest. If you have found this, then the house has chosen you. A cold wave of unease washed through her body. She returned to the main room and stood at the window looking out across the wide dark water. The sky reflected softly on the surface, but the lake no longer looked peaceful, it looked deep, and knowing her eyes drifted upward to the narrow staircase at the far wall. The upper floor waited in shadow, holding answers she was afraid to touch. Her foot found the first step, and the stairs moved beneath her with a slow, tired sound. The air felt warmer as she climbed, and the light grew dimmer. The upper room was small with slanted walls shaped by the roof. At the far end, beneath a single narrow window, stood a desk. On it rested a dark, smooth book, untouched by dust. Mila moved toward it slowly. The closer she came, the warmer the air felt around her hands. When she lifted the cover, her breath caught. Inside were drawings, not of people, but of the lake and the sky and the house, in colors that felt wrong and beautiful at the same time. Some pages showed the moon in shapes she had never seen, others showed shadows beneath the water too large and too deep to be any normal creature. One drawing showed the house exactly as it stood now, but beside it, a figure stood on the water, like the surface was solid ground. Mila closed the book quickly, her heart pounding hard in her ears. At that moment, a sound rose from below, a slow, soft movement from beneath the floor. The gentle splash of water against the pillars shifted into something heavier. Then came a knock, not on the door, not on the walls. From beneath the house, 3 slow taps rose through the wood and into the air around her. Mila stepped back, her body stiff with fear. The lake beneath her was no longer still. Small circles spread across the surface, as if something deep below had moved closer. Another knock followed, slower and stronger than the first one. 2, 3, rising through the floor again. Her breath came fast and shallow, the walls felt closer, the air felt thick and heavy, the house that once felt quiet and waiting now felt awake and listening. Mila backed toward the stairs, unable to pull her eyes from the floor as the water below continued to shift and whisper in low, unseen motion. Far beneath the surface something moved with purpose, rising slowly toward the light. Mila stood frozen at the top of the stairs as the sound from beneath the house continued to rise through the wood, slow and steady like a heartbeat that did not belong to her. The lake outside the window shifted in wide dark circles, and the soft light on the water twisted into broken shapes. Her chest felt tight, and her legs felt weak, yet she forced herself to move step by slow step back toward the stairs. Each board beneath her feet trembled lightly as if warning her that the house was no longer asleep. She reached the bottom and pressed her back against the wall from where she could see the front door still closed and the floor beneath her still silent. For one thin moment, the air felt thick and warm like a storm trapped inside the walls. Then the floor gave another dull heavy sound from below, not a knock this time, but a slow dragging motion that moved beneath the pillars and toward the center of the house. The water outside shifted again, and the soft waves now slapped against the wood with growing strength. Mila did not know what she feared more, the thought of something rising from the lake, or the thought of turning and running without knowing why this place had chosen her. She moved slowly toward the door, each step careful, each breath small. The wooden handle felt warmer than before when her hand closed around it, but before she could pull it open, the sound beneath the house stopped. The sudden silence was worse than the noise. Her body remained tense, waiting for something to break the quiet. The lake outside grew calm again, the circles fading as if nothing had ever moved beneath the surface. The house felt no longer awake, but it did not feel empty either, it felt patient. Mila pulled the door open and stepped onto the narrow walkway. The cool air hit her face, and she filled her lungs quickly like a swimmer breaking the surface after a long dive. She took one step, then another, her eyes never leaving the dark gaps between the wooden boards beneath her boots. The water moved gently now, like it had returned to normal, but her heart had not slowed. Halfway across the walkway she stopped. Something had changed. The surface of the lake no longer reflected the sky. Instead it looked darker, deeper, like a single wide shadow stretching from beneath the house outward across the water. She leaned forward slightly, her breath catching as she saw movement beneath the surface, not fast, not wild, but slow and deliberate, like a living shape turning in sleep. The water rose slightly, then settled again, sending soft waves toward the shore. Mila froze, unable to move, powerless to look away. In that moment, she did not feel fear as much as pull, as if the lake itself were calling her name. Without sound the house behind her creaked, and the shadow beneath the water shifted closer to the surface. A low shape pressed upward, creating a smooth wide curve beneath the water, but still did not break through. Mila felt tears rise to her eyes without knowing why. Her chest hurt with an emotion she could not name, sadness mixed with longing, mixed with wonder. The shadow moved again, closer this time, and in its movement she felt something reach outward, not with hands, but with feeling, like a quiet question sent across the space between them. Mila stepped back toward the shore, only one small step, then another. The pull weakened as distance grew, and the water slowly relaxed, returning to its calm dark mirror. The shadow drifted back beneath the house and vanished as completely as it had appeared. When her boots finally touched solid ground again, her legs gave out, and she sank to her knees at the edge of the lake, shaking hard. The air felt cold again, real again, like the world she understood. The house stood silent in the water, as if nothing had happened, yet she knew now that the letter, the drawings, the knocking, and the shadow were all pieces of one waiting story. She did not return to town that night. Instead she built a small fire near the shore using dry wood she found beneath nearby trees. The flames brought a small sense of safety, and the smoke curled up into the dark sky as stars slowly appeared above the lake. The water remained quiet through the night, not a single ripple moving toward her, yet she felt watched not by eyes but by memory. As morning light crept over the hills, the lake softened into silver and blue. Mila rose slowly, stiff from the cold and the long hours of thinking. She had not dreamed, though she had closed her eyes often. Her mind remained full of the book, the drawings, and the slow shape beneath the water. The house stood waiting as it had the day before, and the walkway stretched across the lake unchanged. Mila knew leaving would be easy, but returning would be harder, yet something stronger than fear guided her forward again. She crossed the walkway in full daylight, each step now steady, though her heart still beat fast. She opened the door and entered the house once more. The air inside felt different, lighter, almost welcoming. She climbed again to the upper room and opened the dark book on the desk. The pages turned easily beneath her fingers, and new drawings had appeared where none had been before. The lake was shown again, but now the shadow beneath was closer to the surface, clearer in shape, tall and curved like something between water and sky. On the next page, a small figure stood at the edge of the walkway, reaching one hand forward. Mila touched the page lightly and felt warmth spread through her palm. A quiet understanding formed in her heart without words. The letters below were few but clear. The house does not belong to land alone. The lake does not belong to water alone. Some places exist between. Waiting is their only language. Mila returned downstairs and stood at the center of the room. The house felt alive, now not moving, not breathing, but aware like a gentle witness to time. She spoke softly, though no sound seemed to echo her voice inside the walls. I do not know what you want from me, but I will listen. The lake outside responded with the faintest ripple spreading outward from beneath the house like a slow, careful answer. Mila remained inside the house as the daylight lifted higher across the lake, and the quiet warmth of morning moved through the windows. The fear that once filled her chest had softened into a careful calm. The house no longer felt like a stranger. It felt like a place that had been holding its breath for a long time, and had finally begun to breathe again. She moved through the rooms, slowly touching the table, the shelves, the doorway, as if greeting something that had been waiting for her touch. She returned again to the chest of letters and untied the faded ribbon with gentle fingers. This time, she read many pages, not just one. The words told the story of a man named Aaron, who had built the house many years ago when the town still lived close to the water. He wrote of the lake, as if it were a living soul. He said it carried memory deeper than stone and patience greater than any heart. Aaron spoke of listening to the water day after day, learning when it was quiet, learning when it was restless, and learning when it was calling. He said he did not choose the lake, but the lake chose him. Aaron had once loved a woman named Lena who shared his long walks along the shore. She believed the lake held answers for those who were willing to wait. When she fell sick, the lake became her only comfort. Aaron wrote that she would sit by the water for hours listening to it speak in low, gentle sounds. When she could no longer walk, he carried her to the shore and held her hand as the sun set across the still surface. One letter told of the night she passed from the world, and how the lake rose higher than ever before, without storm, without wind, without sound. Aaron believed the water had reached for her, not to take her, but to keep her memory alive within it. After her passing, he built the house in the middle of the lake where her voice had once felt strongest to him. He believed the space between water and sky was the only place where loss could rest without pain. As Mila read the final letters, her hands trembled. Aaron had grown old within the house. He wrote of seeing shapes beneath the water that moved slowly like thoughts. He wrote of feeling Lena near in the hush of dawn, and in the silver stillness of night. He said the house did not belong to him alone anymore, and that one day, another would come, someone who carried the same quiet patience and weight of loss in their heart. He said the lake would know when to call that person home. Mila closed the final letter and felt a soft ache fill her chest. She had lost her parents when she was young, and had grown up with an empty space inside herself that never truly healed. She had spent most of her life feeling like she was waiting for something she could not name. Now the letters made her feel seen in a way she had never known. As evening returned, she stepped outside onto the walkway and stood above the darkening water. The air felt still and warm, and the sky blushed with gentle color as the sun lowered beyond the hills. Mila spoke quietly toward the lake. I am here now. I will try to listen. The water remained calm for a long moment, then far beneath the surface something moved, not as shadow this time, but as glow. A soft pale light drifted upward like a distant star rising from deep water. The light spread slowly beneath the lake's surface and formed the curved outline of the same shape Mila had seen before, but now it was clear and full of gentle brightness. The shape rose closer to the surface until the water thinned above it like glass. Then the water parted without sound, and the glowing form lifted halfway into the air. It was not a creature of fear. It was shaped like a long flowing ribbon of light with smooth soft edges and slow steady movement. Its glow painted the pillars and the lower walls of the house in waving color like living fire without heat. Mila felt no fear, only a deep quiet wonder. The light moved closer and rose to the level of the walkway, stopping just a short distance before her. She felt a warmth spread across her face, not like sun, not like flame, but like memory given light. The glow pulsed once softly, and Mila felt a wave of feeling rush through her like a tide of stories, not in words, but in emotion. She felt the long waiting, the quiet love, the loss that had shaped the house and the lake together. Without thinking, she stepped forward onto the walkway and reached out her hand. The light drifted closer until her fingers met the soft edge of its glow. There was no solid touch, yet she felt connection stronger than any grip. She felt the echo of Lena, of Aaron, and of the lake itself woven together into a single living memory. Tears slipped from Mila's eyes as the warmth filled her chest, not with sadness but with peace. The light pulsed again and slowly drifted back toward the water, sinking beneath the surface until the glow faded and the lake returned to its dark mirror once more. But the weight in Mila's heart had lifted, leaving behind a calm she had never known before. That night she slept inside the house for the first time. The wind whispered gently outside, and the water murmured beneath the pillars like a soft, steady song. She dreamed of long walks beside the lake with faces she had never seen, but somehow knew. She dreamed of waiting without fear, and of belonging without question. When morning came, the light was soft and pale across the water. Mila woke with the feeling that something important had shifted, not around her, but within her. She knew now why the house had chosen her. It was not because she owned it, it was because she understood waiting and loss and quiet hope in a way that matched the lake itself. Days began to pass and Mila stayed. She cleaned the rooms, cooked simple meals, and spent long hours reading the letters and watching the water. Each evening the soft glow would rise beneath the surface, never fully breaking through again, but always close enough to remind her she was not alone. The townspeople on the distant shore noticed the light at night and spoke quietly among themselves, but none dared to cross the walkway. Mila had become the keeper not of a strange house, but of a story that lived between memory and water. Mila stood on the walkway as morning light spread across the lake, and the quiet water shimmered with soft color. The house behind her felt warm and awake in a gentle way, like a place that had accepted her fully. The lake before her felt wide and endless, like a road with no clear end. She felt calm, but she also felt a question growing inside her heart, a question that would not leave her alone. The nights had become peaceful in the house. The soft glow beneath the water returned each evening, and faded again with the coming of dawn. The letters no longer felt heavy, but kind, like voices guiding her without force. Mila had found comfort in the quiet routine of the house, but she had not forgotten the world on the shore. The town still waited beyond the trees, with its roads and shops and lives moving forward without her. One morning she saw a small boat resting at the edge of the shore. It had not been there before. The wood looked fresh and clean, and a simple oar lay across its center. The lake was still, as if offering a path. Mila knew the boat was not a gift from the town, it was a choice from the lake itself. She walked down from the house and crossed the walkway slowly. Her steps felt heavier with meaning now. At the shore she touched the side of the boat, and felt no fear, only a deep quiet weight. The lake was offering her a way back to the life she once knew, but she also knew that returning would change her in ways the town might never understand. Mila sat on the edge of the shore, holding her knees to her chest. As her thoughts moved slowly like drifting leaves, she remembered the small room above the closed shop, the bookstore with its quiet shelves and slow hours, the simple days that once felt safe. She also remembered the glow beneath the water, the letters filled with waiting, and loved the way the lake felt aware and alive beneath her feet. She did not know how long she stayed there thinking. The sun climbed higher, and the lake reflected its light in soft silver bands. At last she stood, and walked back across the narrow path to the house. Her steps felt steady now, like a decision rising gently inside her. Inside the upper room she opened the dark book once more. The pages shifted beneath her fingers, and a new drawing appeared without sound. It showed the house on the lake, and far beyond it, a long winding path stretching across distant land. The path did not lead away from the lake, but through it, like a thread connecting two worlds. At the bottom of the page simple words had formed: you may walk both ways if you carry the lake within you. Mila felt a warm calm spread through her chest. The choice did not have to break the past. She could be both the keeper and the bridge between this quiet place and the living world beyond it. The lake did not want her isolation, it wanted her heart. That evening she carried a small bag with only a few belongings and crossed the walkway to the shore. The boat waited beside the water, gentle and still. She stepped inside and pushed away with slow, careful strokes. The house grew smaller behind her, but its presence never faded from her heart. The lake carried her smoothly across without struggle, as if guiding her gently forward. When she reached the town she did not speak of the glowing shape beneath the water, or the living memory that moved through the lake. She returned to the bookstore, and the slow rhythm of ordinary days, but she was no longer empty. The quiet waiting that once followed her like a shadow now felt like strength. At night she dreamed of the glow, and woke with peace instead of fear, instead of longing, instead of loss. Weeks passed, and then months. Mila returned often to the lake. Sometimes she stayed for days, sometimes only for hours. Each time the light beneath the water rose to greet her, and the warmth returned to her hands. The townspeople grew used to seeing the small boat drift across the lake at sunrise and return at dusk. They no longer questioned the house in the middle of the water, they simply accepted that it belonged to Mila in ways no paper could explain. One evening, as the sky faded into soft color and the lake fell into deep silver calm, Mila stood on the walkway and felt a presence beside her, not seen but known. A warm, quiet feeling filled the air like a shared breath. She closed her eyes and whispered, "Thank you." The house stood strong on its pillars. The water moved gently below. The memory of those who had loved the lake lived on through her choices and her quiet care. The space between water and sky remained a place of waiting, but it was no longer lonely. It had found its keeper, and its voice had finally been heard. Mila no longer belonged only to the past or the present, she belonged to the slow living thread between them. The lake had chosen her not to take her from the world, but to teach her how to return with a fuller heart. And every night, as the dark settled across the water, and the soft glow rose once more beneath the surface, the house in the middle of the lake shone quietly with a light of memory, hope, and gentle belonging.